Money FM 89.3, best of the breakfast huddle. The weekly wrap on Money FM 89.3.
Money FM 89.3. Good morning. It's the Breakfast Huddle. I'm Elliot Danker. It's time now to take a look at headlines that Singaporeans have been talking about all week. You know, we have seen how businesses here are trying their best to pick up the pieces after COVID-19. But recently, police have warned against a new type of scam involving fake restaurant reservations. Yeah, we saw these headlines this week, right? In fact, at least 5 victims lost a total of $73,500 since July. Imagine that. The scam targets local food and beverage operators. They would receive calls from fake customers making reservations and then asking for off-menu items to be purchased from a fake supplier. Wow. I mean, these guys have got hit hard. Why are they still a target? Why are they such an easy target, in fact? And I do wonder, apart from reporting the matter to the police, can more be done, especially on the legal front, to assist these victims? Well, on the line with me this morning is Anil Lawani, who is Director of DL Law Corporation. Good morning, Anil.
Good morning, Singapore, and to you too, Elliot, as well.
Hey, thanks a lot for helping me out with this. Scams on restaurants. So they target local F&B operators. Like I mentioned, they receive these fake customer calls asking for off-menu items. Is this something new? It sounds like a prank to me.
My God, this is shocking. I just think it's rotational, almost having a plan in front of them going, right, today we'll hit the individuals, tomorrow we'll do the businesses. Why don't we even think about the employees? I think this is obviously an organized scam. It's working this way simply because the modus operandi is the same.
Right.
It's the same because what I'm going to do is I'm going to lure you with an idea. I'm going to tell you that I'm going to pressure you with time, and then I'm going to put high emotional hot buttons in front of you and tell you it's very important and it's urgent. And ultimately, I'm going to do the one thing that is going to be important. Talk to my third party who's going to be able to do, or if I'm not the third party, I'm the direct party, and I tell you, look, I really need the money, it's urgent, it's important, and that's where the pressure feels.
What are the measures in law that tends to come up? Is it reasonable? I mean, I'm just putting this very plain and broadly. Is it reasonable for these restaurants to fall victim? I mean, is it a case of, it's bad times, so whatever I can get, even if it's too good to be true, I'm taking it?
I don't believe so, because I think this test is obviously something to lure you into it, right? So obviously, this is an internal, which I think we will come to that in a short while. It is something that needs to have in place by all organizations. And I think SMEs are the most vulnerable because we don't actually have proper internal processes and procedures to make things happen properly. So, for example, in this case, if I had received a call placing an order that was of a large number, I think there must be in place for someone to check on whether the order is valid. And if you look at it from a perspective of a business person, if I get an order that is not usual, obviously you need to alert it. You need to bring to someone's attention. You need to escalate this issue to somebody and then decide whether the order is placed correctly. So it could be because somebody at the lower level accepted something that was not actually supposed to have been done. Because if it was just a typical reservation or a typical person asking you to say, look, I need to book a table of 10, it wouldn't have been a problem. But if I'm starting to do a banquet of people coming by, for example, the hotels have a certain way of dealing with this. They require your deposit. They've got a contract in place. So is it reasonable? It didn't sound reasonable when I heard it, but certainly all of these things, I think when it adds scam and reason together, it doesn't add up, right? Because it's exactly that. It's emotions. And that's what scammers are doing.
Brilliant. So you've set the play out very nicely. Then if we're talking about these systems in play, Anil, and I hate to keep using the word education, but I guess we need to think of entering the F&B industry totally different. You've got to have people come in and teach these guys taking orders to do cross-reference checks. Who can assist here? Who can give this education?
I think it's a very difficult question to answer because the pace of which F&B deals with matters and clients, it's not going to be one in which I have a pre-order and I have time to think about it. I don't. And if you talk about educating, I think it's literally everyone feeling the scam effect, from the banks all the way down to employers. So is education a question? Of course, it always will be. I'll just juxtapose this, right, with, for example, what's becoming very popular now, AML, anti-money laundering. And of course, what ACRA does is that it actually educates its directors early to try and tell them, look, you need to spot the AML issues early so that you know what you're looking for. So I think this is a little bit of education and a little bit of having processes in place. For example, one effect for corporate service providers is to ensure that its staff is trained. And so therefore training requires a procedure, and therefore you should have this, look, when you receive a big order, what you need to do is immediately realize, okay, this is not ordinary, this is out of the ordinary, escalate, send it to somebody else who can then deal with it, a manager, a director, who says, look, you want to place a big order, why, what is it for? These three words are very important, which I sort of came across recently. When you have something like that, stop. Second, breathe. Third, ask. And what that really means is move from the reactive to the reflective.
Okay.
And that's critical.
So it's training on critical thinking then, especially in the operations side. But what else have you observed in terms of scams that involve SMEs? I mean, I feel for them because they're just trying to survive here.
Yes, of course. And I think these scams go on all the time. I'll give you the typical example. Somebody places an order, puts in no deposit, tells you he's going to pay. He doesn't pay. You end up not being able to get the goods because you've delivered or not being paid for it. It's not a scam per se, but it's not elaborate scam. There's a scale of how things are done. As an SME, what am I thinking about at all times is, of course, whether I put in place proper steps to ensure that we are able to protect ourselves. That's really where we are. We're actually preventive at the moment. You know, prevention better than cure. That's where we are. Unfortunately, there's no body that has come. And now what I did was I scouted around to see what exactly was available in different jurisdictions.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I end up with the same answer. What's my answer? Please be careful. Be preventive. Have in place. Train. I'm not sure whether that's the best answer, is it? Because you would hope somebody would be able to come and be my super scammer alert man who comes by and tells me, this is wrong, you know, like a superhero. Who knows, you know, Marvel might come with one soon. but yes, exactly, that's the problem we face.
Yeah, it's also a societal issue, and we're talking about a skill that it's not so easy to develop, and that skill being a sense of profiling. The bad guys are profiling you, and you can't expect, you know, your lower level staff to be able to profile in return. That's a skill.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, besides reporting to the police, say it's happened, too bad, what can be done once, unfortunately, you're a victim?
I'm afraid the options are very limited here because most of these scammers operate outside of Singapore.
Yeah.
So we have outside jurisdiction. And even if I were to apply the law, it would take time, whether it's, you know, reporting to the police or taking your own steps to do anything. And own steps mean you can't be recording all your phone calls. You can't possibly be looking at all your business emails and finding whether there's a compromise in there. So I think at the moment we are a little bit stumped with what can we do next other than to be careful.
Right.
It's one of those days when your parents tell you when you're going overseas, please be careful and watch your wallet. That's where we are.
Wow, this is really a tough spot. Let's say I got an F&B business and I'm at the preventive stage, right? Like you mentioned, if it happens, it's just too bad. Say at the preventive stage, coming to a lawyer like you, what can you do? What can you advise?
Sure. I think the first few things I would immediately start off to do is we don't have time to do due diligence on a particular person. So it has to be obviously a person that you've spoken to before. And if it doesn't happen in that way, then you need to ensure that there's a contract that you enter into, especially for the bigger deals. For an F&B outlet, if someone is asking you, look, I need to spend an X amount of dollar, that wouldn't typically be there. There is business risk at any point. But the risk that we're talking about is the exaggerated ones. You know, the ones that someone tells you, look, I need to spend $50,000 on something, which is not common. So that's looking for all these items, looking for all of these markers, and you know something is wrong. Of course, again, we go back to training, but if we leave that point aside, I would enter into three things. Firstly, of course, I need to have an internal policy. Policy is important because I will identify what I'm looking for in any call. That's part of training. I'll move on to ensure that I collect a deposit if I'm dealing with a particular person. And the person tells you, no, I don't put up deposits. You know, unfortunately, as much as we are trying to survive, the last thing you want to feel is cheated.
Right.
So say no. It's okay. Because if he really wants to negotiate with you, he will come back to the table, right? And the third thing I think it's very important is, of course, enter into an agreement. Look, we all think agreements are fancy, difficult documents because there are so many words in there and we all have to read it and we have little time. It doesn't have to be. You know, we are moving towards a situation in which a lot of the terms and conditions are largely agreed upon. We just worry about the commercial terms. And that's when, of course, the legal assist or a legal team assist or someone who is able to work in your company, like an in-house, is able to assist. All of these things don't fit all of the SME criteria, unfortunately, because they've got different varying class. If you tell me an F&B person who's listening, he's going to scold me now. He's going to tell me, hey, mate, are you asking me to keep an in-house legal person because I'm looking out for a scam? No, it doesn't make sense. Of course, it ends up with a commercial decision as to what is right and what is wrong. But of course, there's also, you know, many good lawyers who provide service outside to SMEs as well, as a service to them, to be able to watch their back. You know, what we're trying to do is just literally avoiding potholes, right, for our clients. And likewise, our clients need to take that active step. It's not only about the business.
Yeah, it's a bit like driving, right? You have all these checklists, your hazard light, or what you look left, look right, that kind of thing. And I guess a checklist for any staff taking calls would be helpful. I have to say, Anil, I really like the point on, you know, be willing to lose the reservation deposit than just taking the money for nothing. It's like football. Give away a corner is better than give away a goal.
Absolutely, right? Yeah. Just one thought to that is, I think all of this stems from how we share our information and how we are actually delivering our information or keeping our information. And this is fundamental because if someone is asking you personal questions, think twice about it because you could possibly be just setting him up.
Yeah, really good advice there. Anil Lawani, who is Director for DL Law Corporation, on the line with me. Anil, I appreciate your time this morning. Take care. Have a great weekend in advance.
Thank you very much and have a great day.